Hi everyone, welcome back to the Growth Center where we discuss all things growth, with this series being about recovering from emotional trauma. We're discussing chapter by chapter my new book, Pain in the Soil. So we're on chapter 3, and chapter 3 is entitled Branches of Trauma. As always, I'm going to start off the video with a small excerpt from the book. Branch, a part of a tree that grows outward from the trunk or from a main division. Branches of trauma grow outward just as they do in the botanist's definition. It is what people perceive during interactions. It is how we carry on about our lives. While some wear the pain exceptionally well, the branches still intertwine into our personas, going almost unnoticeable. Branches of trauma could be many different attributes. This chapter will focus mainly on two: anger and anxiety. Now, for the sake of the book, I talk about anger and anxiety because that is what I dealt with personally, so I know firsthand about recovering from those. But a branch of trauma can be many different attributes. It really can. It could be insecurity. It could be just a painful demeanor. It could be dishonesty. It could be many different things, whatever you struggle with. And a lot of times, we all can be anxious. We all get angry. That's just a normal part of life. It actually helps keep our life balanced. No one can walk. I wish we could all walk around happy and jovial all the time. But life is a balance of high and lows. But this chapter deals mainly on when those attributes are at the forefront of who you are. So if you're known for being angry all the time, if you're known for your attitude, if you're known for being emotional all the time, that is a branch of trauma. And if you go searching into your life, you'll find where it originated. You are sure to find some circumstance, something that happened in the past that is a result, that attribute is a result of. So I like to do different scenarios for different videos. The last scenario was, what did we use in the last scenario? I don't remember, but I know it wasn't abandonment. So we're going to use abandonment as the trauma for this video. So say the seed of abandonment has been planted into your life. You weren't raised by your mother, you weren't raised by your father. It doesn't even have to be parental abandonment. It could be spouse abandonment. It could be you just a loner. You never fit into any crowd, so you never had friends, but you deal heavily with abandonment. If that's at the core of who you are, that seed was planted into your life, and your soil, also we talked about in the last video, is known as the soul. I refer to it as soil in my book, but it is the soul. It grows weary because of this, and you haven't done the work, or you don't know how to begin to do the work to rid yourself of the toxic behaviors that can emit from the hostility in your soul. So you produce branches of trauma. Some of these branches can honestly look like a false sense of strength. I do notice a lot of people that struggle with that have struggled with abandonment early in life, or just period, tend to have a false sense of strength. They put on the persona that they don't need anyone, or that they're okay just the way they are, just to go home alone, or anytime they are alone to not feel comfortable. They're not comfortable being alone, if that makes any sense. It's their way. Their false sense of strength is their way of showing the world that they're okay. And honestly, it's a coping mechanism. It's they're trying to tell themselves that they're okay more than they're trying to show the world that they are. That is a branch of trauma. Another branch of trauma, a lot of times, these people can be needy. Notice I say not always, but sometimes they tend to be very needy. They tend to give a lot. In my experience with people who suffer from abandonment, they give a lot, but it's only out of a place of reciprocity. They only give because they want to receive. And the minute that you don't give back what they're receiving, then it's a big issue. So they're known for that. You can be known for being just a difficult person to deal with, because the minute you don't feel that a person is giving what they should be given based off what you've given them in the past, you could just become difficult. And that's all branches of trauma, that those personality traits stemmed from your abandonment. Now, no one's perfect. We all have our flaws, but when it's just at the forefront, when you see that it's a pattern, everyone that you deal with, everyone that you come across complains about the same thing. You can't tend to keep relationships, whether it be friendships, whether it be people that you work with, whether it be an actual relationship, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, you tend to not be successful with that. It may be because you have a branch of trauma that's formed from the seed of trauma. And you really have to identify these things. And the way you really identify it is you kind of take a look at yourself, kind of like I did. Even though I didn't struggle with abandonment, my struggle was with abuse. I had to see what I was doing, what I was known for that was unhealthy. And no one can really notice like you can. If I would have asked, I said this before, anyone around me, they probably, yeah, she's pretty emotionally and mentally okay, but you know you on a level, like you know yourself on a level that no one else does. So really look at yourself and see what isn't healthy. Like for me, it wasn't healthy that I was so withdrawn. A lot of people would say, oh, she's just an introvert. She doesn't really do the crowds. But only when I spoke to me, and said, okay, teacher, why are you so uncomfortable around people? Why do you not mingle? And it's honestly because I felt inadequate. There was insecurity there. I felt like I never fit in. I couldn't fit in. That was a branch of trauma. So only you can identify your branches of trauma. Sometimes you wear your pain outside so other people can identify, especially if you're angry all the time or you're really emotional. But if you hide it really well, it's really going to take some soul searching to identify that branch of trauma, just so that you can go through a process of healing that branch. When in plant life, I like to liken it to something else. In a tree, when you have trauma that is in the soil, so we talked about hostile soil, that it is a real thing, and plants and trees, they can grow, but they tend to be rotted, they tend to be brittle. So when you have a tree that has a brittle branch, it's chopped off. It's cut off, not at the root, because they don't uproot the entire tree, but they cut off that section. It's called pruning. That's the actual definition. And they do some things maybe to the soils to get it to grow a little bit more healthy. And I do talk about that and go into detail about that later in the book as it pertains to both plant life and as it pertains to healing from emotional trauma. Now you put yourself into that. It's going to take the same things. It's going to take taking those personality traits, those unhealthy traits. We're talking about dealing with abandonment here. So if you take something that abandonment produces, which is, we talked about maybe being needy. A lot of times you tend to want people to give what you felt that you've got to cut that off. Like you've got to stop. You need to stop it abruptly. Like that's the only way that you're going to do it, because you can't go in and just start all over. You can't erase the pain that started. So you just got to stop abruptly. You put it in your mind and you say, okay, this is what I'm going to do for people because this is me. This is what I do. This is how I want to be treated. So I'm going to treat people how I want to be treated. Now, whether or not they give it or not, I can't change people. That is on them. So I'm not going to allow myself to get out of character because you're not giving me what I'd like in return. And move on. Don't get angry about it. Don't get bitter about it. Now, I know it's easier said than done, and it's going to be some internal stuff. You can say that. You have to say that, you have to do that to keep practicing it. And the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. But you really have to do some internal work to get your soul to believe it. And that's when I talked about they go into the soil, and it's called amending, and they start amending the soil and adding little things that's needed into the soil to change it over time, so that they don't have to keep pruning those branches. You don't have to keep cutting away behaviors that is only surface. You can cut away some behaviors for surface reasons and then really do your internal work. That way anything that you produce moving forward is genuine. It's from a healthy place. And that's what you're going to have to do with your branches of trauma. And I will go into detail, and as we go chapter by chapter, a small recap of this video is pretty much branches of trauma, which I spoke about. They are personality traits that stem from the seed of trauma, and the hostile soil, the hostility that's in your soul surrounding that seed. And what you have to do is just stop cold turkey, whether it's lying, whether it's you have an attitude, whether you expect a lot from people. Just cut it off, and it's going to be surface, because starting off is going to be surface, because there's a lot of internal work you have to do. You have to get to the point of making yourself believe and do the internal work. And I'm excited for the next video, because in my next video we're going to discuss chapter 4. Let me make sure. I do believe the next chapter is 4. And yes, we are. We're going to discuss that. Faith in the mustard seed is the next video, and that's going to tell us how you do the internal work to actually change those behaviors. You're going to have to start at the surface level, but once you really start changing yourself, you're going to produce fruit. Everything, you're not going to have to chop away anymore. You're going to produce greatly moving forward. Everything that you emit is going to be, not everything, because we all have our flaws, but the majority of the things that you emit are going to be of quality. So, branches of trauma, as always, I really would love for you to get something from our videos. I really would love for us to discuss it in the comments below. What are some of your branches of trauma? And how do you, if you listen to this video and you've learned something, how do you plan to stop cold turkey? Like, how do you plan to say, this is something that I do, it's not healthy, I'm known for this and I shouldn't be, I'm going to stop it. I'm going to stop it, and I'm going to do the internal work so that it's not just surface, so that I can make my soul believe it and I can have a change, actual change. What are some of the things that you're going to cut away? Thank you for tuning in. Like I said, I really hope you got something from it. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.